G'day, Starlo here. I'm on the rocks quite near my home on the far south coast of New South Wales. It's the middle of winter. It's about an hour away from high tide, and I'm down on some fairly nondescript looking rocks. These are not exactly the sort of places you would usually choose to go rock fishing. And what I find with these rocks is they normally tend to fish better on the low tide. But you can't always pick when to go fishing. I'm here just before the high tide, so I've actually had to go to a different part of the rocks to where I usually fish. And I've found a bit of a hole here that's getting some white water and some runoff from the rocks, and looks okay. I've never actually fished in it before. I'm going to put a little bit of burley in and see if I can find something worth catching. This will be interesting. Doesn't look great. And the nor'easter's starting to puff too. A rather unusual wind in winter, but we're getting one today. You just got to take the conditions, but you get served up. This is where I'm going to fish. Down in this gutter here, you can see the water's pouring back out from between the boulders, and there's a lovely area of white water there. Some reef around it, some sand patches. Look, as I said, not exactly a classic rock fishing spot, but I'll be surprised if there isn't something in there. I'll put a little bit of burley in, get a bait in, lightly weighted bait, and we'll see what we can turn up. The burley I'm using simply some soaked stale bread mixed with cabbage weed off the rocks, old prawn heads and shells, and some sand. I'm throwing it into the top of the gutter where the wave action will break it up, and then it'll disperse down through this chute and out into the area where I'm going to cast my bait. That's working nicely. Okay, out onto the rocks to fish. These big, smooth boulders are uneven and a little bit slippery, so I take my time. Even with the short metal studs in my rubber booties, it's a pretty tricky surface to negotiate. And I'm not as agile on the rocks these days as I once was. It's not good in there, is it? Very shallow. I'll wait for these couple of bigger swells to come through. Stirring up a lot of sand in there, which I'm not that keen on. I'll wait for a little bit of a lull and then I'll drop my bait in. It's going to be an interesting spot to try and get a decent fish out of too. Alright, here we go. See what happens. Even in a very ordinary location like this, there's always a sense of keen anticipation about that first cast. Will the fish be straight onto the bait or not? A little snaggy down there. I nearly got snagged. I'll drop it out a little bit wider. I always start with short logs before lengthening my casts. The fish can be right at your feet in a spot like this. A bite. One bite, that's a start. I've still got my bait, so I'll shoot it back out again. It's important to stay in touch with your rig in places like this, otherwise you'll just snag up straight away every cast. Quite a big swell. Shouldn't even get wet up here, I don't think. No, pretty good. A couple of bites, but nothing to write home about. My rig's a dead simple one, a smallish ball sinker running all the way down to a 1/0 hook. The little bead simply protects the knot. It isn't essential. Okay, let's get it back out there. I want to get a bait down in here on the left-hand side of the gutter. Wait for this next swell. There's no point casting when my rig will get pushed straight back in. I'll wait for the washback after a set. That's more the spot. Keep in touch and feel for those bites. It's a hands-on game. Snag. It's hardly surprising.
Even doing everything right, you'll still hang up from time to time in this terrain. Sometimes you can bounce or rip the rig clear, but not this time it seems. I'll try twanging it off instead. Pulling the line taut and suddenly releasing it like this will sometimes do the trick, but not always. Nothing for it but to break the hook off. Point the rod directly down the line, hold the reel spool and pull straight back until something gives. Ooh, pretty good knots. There it goes. Damn it. Time for a re-rig. It's all part of rock fishing. Okay, re-rigged and back into it. I've slightly increased my casting weight by adding a second sinker. I'm going to try throwing a little bit further out onto those sand patches. A few bites, or rather nibbles. Ooh, I've got something, but it's very small. Oh dear.
Well, that wasn't exactly what I was aiming for. One foul hooked toadfish.
Nothing for it but to top up my bait and try again. Back out onto the sand patches and wait.
Oh yeah. Oh, yep. What have we got?
Finally! Now I've just got to thread the maze and get it through the rocks.
Oh, it's a brim and a nice one. Wow, look at that. Oh, I cast out a bit further onto the sand where the Berley's been going. And that is a lovely brim. He'd be good eating out here too, but because he's only lightly hooked and I'm hoping for some drummer, I'm actually going to unhook him and let him go. There you go. Crappy spot, middle of the day, wrong tide, and with a little bit of Berley you can still catch a decent fish. Alright, I'll make sure you don't hit the rocks. Beautiful. Oh, there might be a few out there. We'll try again. I've got a very simple running sinker rig here. I've actually put two small sinkers on because the first time I only had one on and it seemed to be washing around a little bit too much. So I've got a little bean and a little ball sinker on there. Still not much weight. About a 1 or a 1.0 hook. I've actually gone to a snack pattern hook just because it was what my hand fell on in the tackle box. Doesn't really matter too much. He was out that away. So let's see if there's any more out there. Oop, yep, there's a bite. And I don't let it wash around out there for too long. If I miss a bite, to get it in and check it. Don't want it washing into the rocks and snagging up. It's a very active game, this one. You want to stay in contact with your bait. You don't just sit there and wait for things to happen. That went a little bit further right than I really wanted it to, but I'll give it a couple of seconds there. There's a bite. There's another bite. No, it's washing around too far to the right. This is a very tight spot, this one. Go too far left or right and you're going to get snagged up pretty quickly. Allow for that wind a little bit. That's more like it. That's pretty close to where I got that brim. Ooh, there's a bite. Small bites though. They don't feel like quality fish. You see, I'm not leaving it there for very long. The longer you leave it and the more it washes around, the greater your chance of getting a snag. My bait's been considerably diminished, so I'll top it up. I'm just using a bit of peeled prawn. These are prawns that have been in the freezer for quite a while, and they've been thawed a couple of times as well. They're not in great condition, but they're doing the job. Alright, that one is in a good spot. I'm happy with that. Oh yeah, good bite too. Oh, what have I got? Oh. I had the bottom and something else. I managed to get my rig back. No bait. Alright, that seems to be the spot. See if I can land the next bait in this same spot. The wind is getting stronger, so I've got to allow for it when I make my cast. Wait for that swell. Oh, too far left. I'm going to get that out of there. That was not a good cast. I allowed for the wind and it briefly lulled. Make sure my bait's still okay. Alright, try again. Too far right this time, but I'll let it sit there. Not getting those good bites that I did when I landed it right in the prime spot. But I got pretty much baited anyway. I'll grab some more bait. I haven't even bothered to put my belt bait bucket on yet because I didn't think much of this spot, but I'll just grab another couple of baits and give it another 10 minutes.
Okay, with extra bait on hand, I'm back into it.
Wait for a little bit of a lull and just lob it in there. Surely there's got to be a good fish or two sniffing up that Berley trail.
I'm trying right in at my feet again to see if the Berley has worked its magic.
Ooh, what have I got? Well, there was a fish there, but it wasn't what I wanted. The dreaded kelpfish. It's probably swallowed it too.
It sure had swallowed it. And the best thing to do in this situation is to cut the leader right at the fish's mouth and leave the hook in place, which is exactly what I did. But with the nor'easter strengthening and no more sign of quality fish, I figured a change of location was in order, which meant another scramble over the boulders and through the bush to access the more sheltered southern side of the headland.
Well, that was just horrible over there. Once the tide actually peaked and started to run out, it became virtually unfishable. The nor'easter was getting stronger. All I was doing was getting snagged and catching kelpfish. So I've come over onto the southern side of the headland. Not a very inspiring spot. It's all bouldery, very shallow, but at least I've got the wind behind me. I'm going to put the last of my Berley in and just see if I can attract something. I'm not overly confident. This is not somewhere that you would come to go rock fishing.
Once again, I'm faced with a crazy jumble of those big smooth boulders and a mad scramble to even reach the water's edge, or get close enough to make a cast anyway. This is far from user-friendly terrain, especially when some of the smaller boulders actually move under my feet. And when I do get into position, I'm faced with a shallow hole protected by an outer fringing reef. not good. This spot might actually fish okay on a higher tide, especially at night or under heavy cloud cover. But in the bright winter sun, I'll shoot a bait over onto the deeper side near the entrance passage to the hole and hope for the best.
What do we got? I don't think it is a kelpie. It's pulling pretty hard for a kelpie. It's about what I expected to catch him then. Just for a moment I thought it might have been a drummer.
Wishful thinking. Time to face reality.
Just wasn't to be for me today, and I have those days, just like you do. Till next time, tight lines.